Shalom, brothers. In this lesson, I'm going to deal with this controversial scripture in Deuteronomy 23 and 7. You know, because there's a lot of misconceptions going on about this scripture. They've been going on for a while, and the main guys that's using this scripture here is guys that call themselves Israelites that want to save these damn devils. I mean, they're looking for any little nook and cranny. They're looking to save the Esau and save the so-called white man more than the so-called white man is looking to save himself. You know, so one brother asked a question on the Lexicon of GMS page, and they asked, about one. This is one of the scriptures they asked about. So, Lord's will, we're gonna go through it, break it down, so you brothers can see that Deuteronomy 23 and 7 is not speaking about an Edomite. Alright, so we're going to start off by reading the scripture first and then going through it. Alright, Deuteronomy 23 and 7. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou wast a stranger in his land. Alright, now, first and foremost, the word abhor does not mean to hate. It means to avoid. To set aside as abominable. Alright? And we'll go through explaining why this is written. But the word Edomite there, it says thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. The word Edomite does not belong there, because the word Edomite was never placed there. This was placed after them so-called Masoretes took over in around the 10th century AD, after the Khazars had already been established as a nation, and as being, them so-called Jews were established as, supposedly taking over and being Israelites, which that goes into a whole nother topic. They really didn't convert to the scriptures, the Torah, which they call Torah, and the Tanakh, or which they call Tanakh, which is the Old Testament scriptures. They didn't convert to those Old Testament scriptures, because you can't convert anyway. But what they did was they converted to what's called Judaism, which was a practice that was followed, beginning with the Pharisees, which were Israelites, as Elder Gabar always goes into that topic, and they basically took on that trend once they took over, because, they're the devil. So when it says thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, when the Masoretes took over the translations of the Bible, what they did was they inserted this in there. And that's not the word that belongs there. Alright, we got here, this is in the Blue Letter Bible, Deuteronomy 23 and 7. Alright, that's the English. Then in the Hebrew, the verse is the 23rd chapter and the 8th verse, as you can see here. And as you see, I mainly focus on this word here, because this is the word that they say is Edomite. Now you have the word Adamaya or Adamya. Alright, and I wrote it down here, Adamya or Adamaya, which equals Edomite, and I put a question mark here. Alright, so we're going to find out in this lesson that word Edomite is not even here in this chapter. Now the word for Edom, or the word Edom in the Hebrew, is not Adamya or Adamaya. Alright, the word for Edom, as you see here, is Adawamya. This is the word for Edom right here, Adawamya, Edomite. Adawamya. Adawamya is Edomite. Now the word Adawam, without the ya at the end, means Edom. So that's the word that should have been there if there was going to be a word for Edom there. Should have been Adawam. Alright, now let's move on from there. Now this right here is from the Strong's Concordance number 130. Alright, and this is the word that's there, as we read already, Adamya or Adamaya, however you want to pronounce it. But it's more than likely is Adamya, because of the fact that the word that really belongs there is Aramya. Alright, so we're going to get to that, which means Syrian. Alright, so now you see here, right, when you read on down here to the outline of biblical usage, it says here Edomite. But then as you read down here, the authorized version of the KJV translation account, here you see Edomite, and then you see Syria. Why? Because there's certain times where the the Syrian language, the word for Edom and the word for Assyrian, for Syrian, were mixed up. You know, sometimes they did it. They did it on purpose. Most of the time, they did it on purpose, especially in scriptures like Deuteronomy, the 23rd chapter, and the 7th verse. But sometimes the da and the ra, which I did a lesson on that, the da and the ra they look similar. That's why it could have been a possibility in certain parts of the Bible that could have been confused, and put there mistakenly. That is a possibility. But I know definitely in the book of Deuteronomy, the 23rd chapter, and the 7th verse, they did that maliciously and intentionally. Because what them so-called Jews have been trying to do, their whole existence basically is to try to get the birthright back. So what they did was they put that scripture in there into the Edomite, thou shalt not abhor Edomite, because they know that they're Edomites. So they're trying to make it seem like they're getting some type of mercy, in the scriptures, when all throughout the scriptures, when you read every scripture about Esau or Edom, it was always something negative or wicked that they did, or some future judgment that the Most High was going to bring upon them. There's nowhere in the scriptures where it ever spoke about anything about Esau or the Edomites receiving any form of mercy. But then all of a sudden, Deuteronomy 23:7, is gonna. That's just an exception. Nah, even in the Compact Bible Dictionary, when you look up under the word Edom, which I'll read real quick, this is the under Edom, right? The last paragraph, it says this. It says Edom figures prominently in the prophetic scriptures as the scene of great future judgments. See notably Isaiah 34 verse 5 and 6 and Isaiah 63 and 1. She is the only neighbor of the Israelites who was not given any promise of mercy from the Most High. Alright? So all throughout the scriptures you read about Esau's judgments, the wickedness of Esau being the wicked, but then all of a sudden here, in Deuteronomy 23 and 7, it shows mercy to the Edomites. Come on, man, that don't make no damn sense. And there's a reason for it. So they changed that. And they changed a few words in there, because some of the stuff they didn't have to change. They pretty much kept it, basic, and kept it, true to the letter. But a lot of things that were very key and very important, they changed. Like this Edomite thing was one of the main ones. All right, so it says here Edomite, Syria. All right, now as you read through here, it gives you, the history on Esau and certain, points, about Edom and their land and where they lived. And then when you read down here, you see the word here, Arawum-yum. All right, Arawum-yum. Then it says here, 2 Kings 16 and 6, an incorrect reading for Adawum-yum. All right, so this is Arawum-yum, right, which is Aramaean or Syrian. 2 Kings 16 and 6, an incorrect reading for Adawum-yum. All right, which stands in Quaraya, which is the reading, and I'll show you what they mean by that. And then you read through here, and it gives you different instances where the word Edomite comes up, and where the number 130 is applied to that particular word or that particular name. All right. Now most of these here, I did a show on Doeg. Now here it says that Doeg was an Edomite, but then when you go through it, I did a show on it. Doeg was really Syrian. He wasn't an Edomite. He was Syrian. But here it has Edomite in the English translation. They did that on purpose to try to throw people off. Because if you're trying to wake up, or if you're waking up, they got to put stumbling blocks, because the Lord said that his word was going to be a stumbling block. So he had to have somebody set up those stumbling blocks. So the stumbling blocks that were set up by the Masoretes and the so-called Jews, through the Biblical Destruction Group, other groups such alike, and later on, not too far in the future from that point, they had what was called as the Learned Elders of Zion.